Hi, my name is Sarah Zhao, and I'm pleased to introduce the next speaker. Dr. Cheng is an associate professor at the School of International Studies and deputy director of Center for China's International Strategic Studies at Renmin University, China. His main research focuses on China's foreign relations with the United States, the two Koreas, India, Pakistan, and some other neighboring countries. Dr. Cheng once worked for China Institute of Contemporary International Relations for 9 years and served as a visiting research fellow at the Fairbanks Center of Harvard University between 1997 and 1998. He also taught at China's Politics and Foreign Policies in Dublin College University in 2007 and China's Foreign Relations in University of Michigan at Ann Arbor in 2009. His recently published articles mainly cover China's relations with the Korean Peninsula and the Indian subcontinent. Dr. Cheng did his undergraduate works in international politics at Fudan University, Shanghai, and earned his PhD in political science from Boston University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cheng.
Thank you, Sarah, for your kind introductions. And also, I'd like to take the chance to thank the Wellesley College for inviting me to join these programs. It's my great honor to be here to share some thought with you guys. And today, I'm going to mainly try to partially answers false fundamental questions associated with North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. But before doing that, I would like to show the map. And this is the map, and you see this is Beijing, and the capital of People's Republic of China, the heart of People's Republic of China. And this is two peninsulas. One is Liaodong Peninsula, another one is Shandong Peninsula. And the two peninsulas serve as the crab, the leg of the crab, help to protect the heart of these countries. And you see the Korean peninsulas stand in front of the two legs of a crab. So in China, we like to use a very popular metaphor to characterize the relationship between Korean Peninsula and China. This is the lip, and this is the T. This is the heart of China. So the relationship between China and the Korean Peninsula could be characterized as a T to lip. It's a very important. So in the long histories, China has engaged in a number of the wars with third parties. That means third parties. In the first place with Japan's in Tang dynasties more than 1,000 years ago. And Tang dynasties and Japan fought war to compete the spheres of influence on Korean Peninsula, and this time China won. And the second war took place in the late Ming dynasties, and China also won. But such a kind of war was so expensive, so costly, and even though Ming dynasty won the war, but this dynasty could not afford such a kind of cost war, so Ming dynasties died in the next 20 years. And also, in Qing dynasties, in late Qing dynasties, China and Japan engaged another war to compete for the same reason, spheres of influence over Korean Peninsula, and this time China was totally defeated. And China was not only forced to cede Taiwan and its surrounding islands to Japan, but also China was forced to cede the Liaodong Peninsula to Japan. But this peninsula was so important, and the Russians and the Germans and France couldn't tolerate such a kind of secessions to Japan. So three nations stepped in and forced Japan to abandon such a kind of requirement. And the last wars, took place between 1950 and 1953, and it was called Korean Wars. And the Korean War in China was perceived as a victorious war. China scored big victories. But for me, it's China didn't won the wars. But it's won the wars in a number of ways. In the first place, it boosts Chinese confidence. Because since the first Opium War, China engaged in numerous wars, but China was all defeated. But this time, China wasn't defeated. So the self-confidence was gradually boosted. And secondly, and the PLA, People's Liberation Army, China's armies, for the first time, had endured some kind of rapid modernizations. For the first time, China's conducted joint military campaigns against the small island near Korea Peninsulas. And also, the wars helped the Communist Party to consolidate its power base by confront the United States, number one powers on the earth. So in that sense, the war was won by China. But you see, the final demarcations on Korea Peninsula remain unchanged across 18 parallels. So in that sense, the war was fought to a tie between China on one side and the United States on the other side. So after examining the geopolitical roles China pay special attention, I think I'm going to answer a number of questions. Number one, is it fair to punish North Korea? You see, China has nuclear weapons, United States has nuclear weapons, Great Britain, France all have nuclear weapons. Why is North Korea could not have nuclear weapons? And even today, China and the United States continue to test its nuclear devices by computer. But why North Korea couldn't test its nuclear devices? I think this is the fundamental questions we have to answer. But from Chinese perspectives, North Korea, in the first place, violated NPTs. The NPT's non-proliferation treaties, it was signed by United States, Great Britain, and the former Soviet Unions, and also endorsed by a number of the countries in 1968. And according to the NPTs, each non-NWS, I'm going to ask you what NWS stands for. It's nuclear weapons states. The non-nuclear weapon states undertake not to receive from any source nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices, not to manufacture or acquire such weapons or devices, and not to receive any assistance in their manufactures. And North Korea joined the NPT in 1985. But this country secretly conducted its nuclear weapons, secretly acquire enriched uraniums. In other words, this country secretly violated the NPT it signed in 1985. But you may ask, North Korea finally withdraw from the NPT, so North Korea has the right to develop nuclear weapons. And you see, according to the Article 10, each party shall, in exercises its national sovereignty, have the right to withdraw from the treaty if it decides that extraordinary events related to the subject matters of this treaty have jeopardized supreme interest of its countries. It shall give notice of such withdrawal to all the parties to the treaties and to the United Nations Security Council 3 months in advance. But I'm going to ask, when North Korea made the decision to withdraw from NPT in 2003, what kind of extraordinary event happened? No. Only United States President George Bush Jr. characterized North Korea as the member of evil axis. But such a kind of characterization did not jeopardize North Korea's supreme interest of these countries. In other words, North Korea had no solid reason to withdraw from the NPT. So this is the answers. And the second answer to the questions, North Korea also violated United Nations charters. And according to the United Nations Charter's Article 24, in order to ensure prompt and effective actions by the United Nations, its members confers on the Security Council primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, and agree that in carrying out its duties and this responsibility, Security Councils act on their behalf. In other words, in 1992, North Korea joined the United Nations. And these countries explicitly conferred on the Security Council primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security. And also, according to Article 25, the member of the United Nations agree to accept and carry out decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present charters. In other words, North Korea need to agree to accept and carry out decisions of Security Councils. But the Security Council has passed 11 resolutions against the North Korea. And these countries did not follow, did not carry out, did not obey. So as the member of the United Nations, North Korea violated United Nations charters. And according to articles, if this country repeatedly violated principles contained in the present charters, and North Korea could be expelled from United Nations. And after North Korea has conducted its 6th nuclear test, and Security Council once considered to disband North Korea from United Nations. And also, North Korea violated joint statement is signed with South Korea on 19th February 1992. And under the joint declarations, North Korea and ROK agree not to test, manufacture, receive, process, store, deploy, use nuclear weapons, or use nuclear energy solely for peaceful purposes, and not to process facilities for nuclear reprocessing and uranium enrichment. As a matter of fact, North Korea grossly violated, and such an important joint statement is signed with South Korea. And South Korea so far has no nuclear weapons. And certainly North Korea has violated other commitments, broke other commitments it made in the previous year, particularly the September 19th joint statement. So this is the partial answers. North Korea violated all kinds of international law, charters, agreement, and this country deserves to be punished. It's fair. And I'm going to try to answer this question, whether or not the United States will attack North Korea. And before we enter Pyeongchang time, the Winter Olympic time, And the war talks run high, not only in the United States, but also in China. And all the experts make wild guess about the possibilities of U.S. using force against the DPRK, because we try to persuade the DPRK to abandon nuclear weapons by diplomatic means, six-party talks. But six-party talks failed, and this talk has been suspended for more than 8 years. And also, the international community tried to pressure North Korea to abandon nuclear weapons, but exerted tremendous economic pressures on that country. And so far, economic pressures failed to force North Korea to abandon nuclear weapons. And the third option is the military ones. But so far, we haven't exercised such a kind of options. We don't know whether or not military options can effectively eliminate North Korea's nuclear and missile capabilities. So one of the well-known Chinese lieutenant general made a clear analysis that the United States has finished its preparations for war against the DPRKs. But for me, for the time being, I think the United States will not use military forces against DPRK in the next 2 months, because any kind of predictions more than beyond 3 months would be too risky, because the situations on Korea Peninsula is so volatile. It's stupid. It's risky to make speculations beyond 3 months. And other reasons. Number one is Donald Trump is a game changer. Certainly, I personally don't like Donald Trump. He's divisive, compulsive leaders, and he tried to make the United States great. I'm not sure, but I'm confident he's now making China great. But he came to power, get rid of Obama's so-called strategic patient strategy. Strategic patient strategy is non-action strategies. He changed that and adopted so-called maximum pressure plus engagement policies. And also, Donald Trump came to assert United States leadership in seeking solutions to North Korea's nuclear weapons. And also, Donald Trump is succeeded in pulling China to United States side. One way or another, even though China was reluctant to do so. But nonetheless, China agreed United Nations Security Council to set cap on oil export to North Korea. Everybody knows the oil is the lifelines of North Korea's economy. If you cut off the oil supply, if you reduce the oil supply, and North Korea will suffer immediately. So seemingly, you see, North Korea has changed its mind and agreed to talk to South Korea. And seemingly in the Koreans' rapprochement is gaining momentum. In other words, the international sanctions seemingly works. But why not give Security Council's sanction resolutions more time? And also, we have to pay special attention. The new resolutions, 2397, contains one important articles. According to the articles, if North Korea continue to conduct its ICBM or nuclear test, and the Security Council will seek new resolution to reduce North Korea's oil import. In other words, United States and China can tolerate another round of major provocations on the part of the North Korea. So I think it's for the next 2 months, I don't think the United States will use military forces against the DPRK, and the United States will continue to carry on a so-called maximum pressure plus engagement. And the time is not on the North Korea side. Question 3, what China has done and will do? China certainly is part of the game, but unfortunately, China is a poor player. And this poor player once had many trump cards, good cards, but play very poor for a number of reasons. Number one, you see China has adopted reactive policies. And these policies has built-in contradictions. Initially, China opposed United Nations Security Council's involvement in North Korea's nuclear issues. But after North Korea has conducted its nuclear test, first nuclear test in 2006, China agreed to send the case to Security Council. And also China initially agreed military embargo on the DPRK and opposed economic sanctions against that country. But finally, after North Korea repeatedly tested its nuclear devices, China agreed to impose sanctions, economic sanctions on that country. And also, initially, China try hard to maintain some loopholes when China implement its economic sanctions against North Korea. And this loophole was eliminated in the new Security Council's resolutions. So you see, China's move little bit by adopting some so-called incrementalist approach, because China had illusions that North Korea may give up its nuclear weapons. And you see, in the past years, China maintained the policies we call no war, no chaos, and no nuclear, 3 no's policies in deal with North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations. But these policies have built-in contradictions. If North Korea's nuclear weapons could not be abandoned, and the chaos will take place on Korea Peninsula inevitably. If the chaos continue on, and other countries will pursue nuclear weapons. So I like to characterize China's policy as chasing 2 rabbits in 2 opposite directions. One rabbit is denuclearizations, another rabbit, no chaos. Chase 2 rabbits in opposite directions and cannot get any of them. Bad reputations. In the past years, you see China has been portrayed by international media as North Korea's lawyer. I personally disagree with such a kind of labelings, because if China was North Korea's lawyer, North Korea need to pay lawyer fees. China paid everything and tried to justify North Korea's nuclear weapons. I don't think those. But some of the scholars like to label China as North Korea's lawyer, and also label China as North Korea's protectors. Particularly, you see the Security Council has passed numerous resolutions against the DPRK, and according to some of the scholars, China failed to implement resolutions in the complete or feasible ways. So China is and was and is North Korea protectors. And also, so you see China's border area in North Korea is in danger. The nuclear test site is a little bit more than 100 kilometers away from China's border. If something goes wrong, And the North Korea's people will fall, in the first place, fall to the victims of such a kind of incident or accident. And the local peoples in China's border area will be the next, and South Koreans peoples. And in addition to the borders area in danger, and you see North Korea's nuclear and missiles test fuels armories in these regions, and they encourage South Koreans and Japan to acquire its own nuclear and missile weapons. And also, Taiwan may follow the suit. So that would be the nightmares China try to avoid. So what China can do now, there are two options. United States, as a matter of fact, in the past 1 or 2 years, has created for China. Now China's options need to choose between United States versus North Korea. United States government creates such kind of situation. China government has to make a choice between United States and North Korea. In other words, if China does not follow United States advices, refuse to take United States advice, policy recommendations in the Security Councils, and then United States will punish China. Economically, militarily, whatever. China needs to make a choice. And another options, China needs to make between war and maximum pressures. And the two options are not China's creations. And the two options, as a matter of fact, have been created by United States government. So between two options, my judgment is that China will choose United States rather than North Korea. In other words, China may give up North Korea in order to maintain working relationship with the United States. And also between war and maximum pressures, China will choose the latter, the maximum pressures, rather than war. Because war is risky, dangerous, uncertain. And China and other neighbor countries to North Korea will suffer. China will try hard to avoid any possible wars the United States may initiate. And but after make such a kind of choices, I would like to say the two results we can predict. There's no second Korean Wars. In other words, if wars break out on Korean peninsulas, China would not come to North Korea's rescues, and no war will erupt between China and the United States. China may intervene militarily to protect China's national interest, not to fight with the United States. That's for sure. And another one for sure, if war really breaks out, the day the war breaks out would be the day of Korean national unifications process starting. In other words, when the United States made the decision to launch military attack against the DPRK, and that would be the day of the start of the national unification of Koreans. The last questions: will inter-Koreans rapprochement be short-lived? And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, and now the situation's mode on Korean Peninsula is switched from confrontations to talks. Talks may be empty, but it's good. Particularly in the past several years, we haven't witnessed any of the kind of talks taking place between and the member of the Sixth Party talks. It's good things. And we have to encourage the talks to continue on and produce results. And also, the ongoing interference, rapprochement, have produced some kind of chemistries between the two leaders, Chai Yin-moo and Kim Jong-un. You see, as Moon came to power, he tried hard to build good relationship with the North part. And he made a big speech in Berlin. Even though North Korea just conducted the first ICBM test. And in his speech, Moon Jae-in tried to separate ongoing sanctions against DPRK from inter-Korean economic cooperations. So he tried to promote so-called moonlight policies in an attempt to build rapprochement across the 18th parallels, but failed because North Korea at that time was so occupied with nuclear and missile tests and had no interest in such a kind of good policies, moonlight policies. But all of a sudden, the Pyeongchang's Olympic Games offer a good opportunities for the two Koreans to step aside the differences and build some kind of rapprochement. And I have to say, even though they can talk about friendship, talk about the Koreans' unifications, talk about the Olympic spirit, it's okay, it's fine. But the bottom line is, such a kind of ongoing rapprochement between two Koreans will touch on the fundamental questions. What the two Koreans are going to do with North Korea's nuclear issues. If North Korea continued its nuclear and missile program, refused to make any kind of changes on its nuclear and missile behaviors, and then this kind of rapprochement will be short-lived. And if North Korea softens its positions on its nuclear and missile programs, and the talks between two Koreans may lead to the talks between North Korea and the United States, and talks between North Korea and China. And then we're going to see such kind of talks gain momentum and create quite different situations. But if North Korea refuses to make any kind of concessions, make any kind of changes on its nuclear and missile programs, and then the situation on Korea Peninsula will fall back to the confrontational mode. And I would like to see the Pyeongchang Olympic Games will offer the last chance for the peace on Korea Peninsula. If the parties, stakeholders fail the chance, and we're going to seize a new crisis, will continue on. And that's the things we try so hard to avoid. Thank you for your patience.